The cursor blinked. A rhythmic, monochromatic heartbeat against the obsidian void of the terminal window. It was the only thing moving in the entirety of the 42nd floor of the Ethereos Tower, save for the rapid-fire twitch of Elena Vance's pupils. To anyone watching from the outside, she would have looked catatonic, a statue carved from exhaustion and caffeine, bathed in the sickly blue luminescence of 3 curved 4K monitors. But inside her mind, she was sprinting. She was tearing through a digital cathedral of her own making, checking the load-bearing columns of logic, smoothing the mortar of syntax, ensuring that the beast she had spent 2 years birthing, Chimera, didn't collapse under its own terrifying weight. The silence of the office was heavy, pressurized, like the air inside a submarine. It was 3:17 a.m. in San Francisco. Outside the floor-to-ceiling glass walls, the city was a sprawling circuit board of fog and amber streetlights, asleep and indifferent. Inside, the air conditioning hummed a low, industrial dirge. Elena cracked her knuckles, the sound sharp like a pistol shot in the quiet room. Her fingers hovered over the mechanical keyboard, customized with heavy switches that clicked satisfyingly with every keystroke. She wasn't just typing. She was conducting. "Come on, you stubborn bastard," she whispered, her voice raspy from disuse. "Talk to me. Tell me where the latency is hiding." She was hunting a ghost, a microscopic delay in the high-frequency trading algorithm 0.04 milliseconds. To a human, it was less than nothing, a fraction of a blink. To Chimera, intended to be the world's first predictive financial engine capable of outthinking the global market, it was an eternity. It was the difference between $1 billion in profit and a catastrophic cascade failure. Marcus Thorne, the man whose face was currently plastered on every tech magazine in the lobby downstairs, had promised the board 0.01 milliseconds. He had promised them God in a box. And then he had gone to a wine tasting in Napa, leaving Elena to figure out how to force divinity into a server rack. She isolated the subroutine. Line 45,092, a memory leak in the garbage collection protocol. It was clumsy, a relic from the early alpha build written by one of the junior devs Marcus had hired because he liked his sneakers. Elena didn't delete it. She surgically removed it, rewriting the pointer logic in C++ with a speed that bordered on violent. She recompiled. The compile bar crawled across the screen. Green, green, green. Execution time, 0.009 ms. Elena exhaled, her entire body sagging into the ergonomic mesh of her chair. She had done it. She had just saved the company's flagship product, and nobody was awake to see it. She reached for the mug on her desk, bringing it to her lips only to find a cold, sludge-like remnant of coffee that had been brewed 6 hours ago. She grimaced and set it down next to a crumpled wrapper of an energy bar. This was her life. This had been her life for 24 months. No weekends, no dates, no calls to her mother in Ohio. Just the code, just Chimera. The sound of the elevator chiming at the far end of the hall made her jump. It was a soft, melodic bing, utterly out of place in the dead of night. Elena spun her chair around, squinting into the darkness of the open-plan office. The shadows of empty cubicles stretched out like gravestones. Footsteps echoed against the polished concrete floor. Heavy, confident, leather-soled footsteps. Marcus Thorne emerged from the shadows, looking like he had just stepped out of a GQ photo shoot. Even at this ungodly hour, his suit was immaculate. A navy blue Italian cut that cost more than Elena's car. His hair was perfectly coiffed, his jawline sharp enough to cut glass. He carried a leather gym bag in one hand and a tablet in the other, bringing with him the scent of sandalwood and expensive scotch. "Still at it, El?" Marcus asked, his voice smooth, carrying that practiced warmth that made investors open their checkbooks and employees work until they bled. He didn't wait for an answer. He walked past her desk, glancing at the screens without really seeing them. To Marcus, code was just gray noise that happened in the background of his genius. "The latency is fixed," Elena said, her voice flat. She didn't want his praise, but she needed him to know. "I rewrote the memory management for the predictive core. We're under the threshold." Marcus stopped. He turned back, flashing that $1,000,000 smile. I knew you'd crack it. That's why you're my secret weapon, Elena. The engine room needs a mechanic, right? Mechanic. The word tasted like bile. She was the architect. She was the engineer. She was the mother of the thing he was about to sell to the world. It wasn't a mechanical issue, Marcus. It was a structural flaw in the architecture you insisted on using last month. Elena corrected him, her patience fraying. If we launch on Tuesday without a full stress test of the new patch, we're gambling. Marcus chuckled, a dismissive, airy sound. He walked over and perched on the edge of her desk, invading her personal space. He picked up a stress ball shaped like the Ethereo's logo and tossed it casually in the air. Elena, always the pessimist. You see the trees, I see the forest. The forest is green, my dear. Money green. The board doesn't care about stress tests. They care about the launch date. And the launch date is set in stone. He looked at the scrolling lines of code on her primary monitor. Just make sure it holds together for the demo, alright? I have CNBC coming in at 9 a.m. for the pre-launch exclusive. I need to look like a wizard. The code will hold, Elena said, turning back to her keyboard to avoid looking at him. But you need to understand the limitations. If the user load exceeds 10 million concurrent requests, it won't, Marcus interrupted, standing up and checking his reflection in the dark glass of the window. And if it does, that's a good problem to have. We'll patch it later. Move fast and break things, right? I'm the one who has to fix the things you break, she muttered, low enough that he could ignore it if he chose to. He chose to ignore it. Instead, he placed a hand on her shoulder. It was meant to be a gesture of camaraderie, a coach encouraging his star player, but it felt heavy and possessive. Go home, Elle, get some sleep. You look like a zombie. I need you fresh for the big day. I want you standing right there in the back of the room when we flip the switch. In the back of the room, she repeated. Not on the stage. Not by his side. In the back. Best seat in the house. Marcus winked. He grabbed his bag. Oh, and email me the technical summary of what you did tonight. Keep it simple. Big words, simple concepts. I need to memorize it for the interview. He walked away, whistling a tune, his footsteps fading back toward the elevators. The bing sounded again, and then he was gone, leaving Elena alone with the humming machines. She sat there for a long time, staring at the cursor. The anger didn't flare up hot and fast. It was a cold, slow burn, a hardening of her insides. She opened her email client. She began typing the summary he asked for, simplifying her brilliance into bite-sized sound bites he could parrot to the press. The algorithm utilizes a dynamic neural pathway. She stopped. Her fingers hovered over the keys. For a brief, dangerous second, she considered deleting it all. RF/, just wiping the server clean. Let him stand on stage and present a hollow shell. But she couldn't. Chimera was beautiful. It was the most complex thing she had ever created. It was art. You don't burn the Mona Lisa just because the gallery owner is a prick. She finished the email, hit send, and closed her laptop. The screens went black, plunging her into darkness. The sun came up over San Francisco like a bruise, purple and yellow fighting through the smog. Elena hadn't gone home. She had slept for 3 hours on the couch in the break room, wrapped in a promotional hoodie. She woke up to the sound of the espresso machine screaming as the early risers trickled in. The office transformed from a crypt into a beehive. Young men in hoodies and expensive sneakers, the junior devs, congregated in the kitchen, talking loudly about crypto and stock options. They nodded at Elena as she shuffled past, a vague acknowledgement of her existence. But they didn't stop their conversation. To them, she was legacy hardware, reliable, boring, and invisible. By 8:30 a.m., the energy in the office was frantic. The marketing team was running around with clipboards, shouting about branding alignment. The sales team was high-fiving. And in the center of it all was the glass-walled conference room, the aquarium, where the executive team was gathering. Elena went to her desk, her eyes gritty. She pulled up the system diagnostics. Chimera was purring. The patch she had applied at 3 a.m. was holding perfectly. The efficiency metrics were off the charts. It was ready. "Hey, Vance." Elena looked up. It was Kevin, a front-end developer who spent more time styling his hair than his CSS. He was holding a tablet. "Marcus wants you in the war room. Something about the authentication UI." Elena sighed. "What did he break?" "I don't know, man. He's freaking out. Just go." Elena grabbed her laptop and walked toward the aquarium. Through the glass, she could see Marcus pacing. He was flanked by Sterling, the CEO, a bulldog of a man who looked like he chewed gravel for breakfast. Sterling was red in the face, pointing at the main presentation screen. Elena pushed the heavy glass door open. The sound of the argument spilled out. "Don't care how it works, Marcus. I care that the logo isn't centering on the mobile build." Sterling was yelling. Marcus saw Elena and his face instantly transformed from panic to relief, then to authoritative calm. "Elena, there you are. I was just explaining to Mr. Sterling that the mobile responsiveness is tied to the back-end encryption handshake, which you were optimizing last night." He was lying. He was throwing her under the bus for a CSS error that had nothing to do with her code. A front-end alignment issue had zero connection to back-end encryption. It was technical gibberish, but it sounded plausible enough to a CEO who didn't know Python from a Python snake. Elena stood in the doorway. She could correct him. She could explain right now, in front of Sterling, that Marcus was sprouting nonsense. But she saw the desperation in Marcus's eyes. A silent plea. "Play the game, I'll play the game." "I'll fix it, Mr. Sterling," Elena said quietly. "It's a caching issue." Sterling grunted, adjusting his tie. "Just get it done. We have the Japanese investors calling in an hour." Elena sat down at the conference table, plugging her laptop into the main feed. She ignored the UI code. Instead, she opened the terminal and flushed the cache, a command that took 3 seconds. The logo snapped into place on the main screen. "Fixed," she said. Sterling looked at the screen, then at Marcus. "Good. See? That wasn't so hard." Marcus beamed, clapping his hands together. "Excellent work, team. Crisis averted." He didn't look at Elena. He looked at Sterling. "Like I said, the architecture is robust, but these minor front-end glitches are expected when we're pushing this much data." Elena unplugged her laptop. She felt hollow. She was the janitor again. She stood up to leave, but the door opened before she could reach it. It was Linda, the director of human resources. Linda never came to the engineering floor. Linda stayed in her plush office on the 45th floor, where she managed human capital. Her presence here, holding a thick manila envelope, made the temperature in the room drop 10 degrees. The chatter outside the glass walls seemed to mute. Even Sterling stopped talking. "Marcus," Linda said, nodding to him, then turning her gaze to Elena. Her expression was practiced, neutral, the face of an executioner who viewed the axe as just another office supply. "Elena, do you have a moment?" Elena felt a cold spike in her stomach. I'm in the middle of the pre-launch checks, Linda. Can it wait?" "I'm afraid not," Linda said softly. She didn't step into the room. She stood by the door, holding it open. A summons. "Please bring your laptop and your badge. Bring your badge." The words hung in the air like smoke. Elena looked at Marcus. For the first time all morning, he looked at her. Really looked at her. There was no surprise on his face. No confusion. Just a slight tightening of his jaw. A flicker of something that might have been guilt if he were capable of it. Quickly replaced by a steely resolve. He knew. Of course he knew. He had probably signed the paperwork before he came to her desk last night to ask for the fix. "Marcus?" Elena asked, her voice trembling slightly. Marcus looked down at his watch, checking the time. "You should go with Linda, Elena. We can handle the rest from here." "But, the launch," Elena stammered. "The integration tests. You don't know how to run the manual overrides if the API throttles." "We'll figure it out," Marcus said, his voice cold, final. He turned his back to her, facing the screen where the Ethereo's logo spun in a perfect, infinite loop. "Thank you for your contributions." The room was silent. Sterling was checking his phone, indifferent. The world slowed down. Elena felt the weight of the laptop in her hand. Contained the source code, the keys to the kingdom, her life's work. She looked at Marcus's back one last time. She memorized the cut of his suit, the way he stood with his hands in his pockets, the arrogant tilt of his head. She realized then that she had been coding a masterpiece for a thief. "Okay," Elena whispered. She walked toward the door. As she passed Linda, she felt a strange sensation. Not fear, not sadness, but a sudden, crystal-clear clarity. It was the same feeling she got when she spotted a critical bug in the system. The realization that something was fundamentally broken, and the cold, logical determination to execute a command that would balance the equation. She stepped out of the war room and followed Linda down the long hallway toward the elevators. The click of her heels on the concrete was the only sound, a metronome counting down to the end of her life at Ethereos, and the beginning of something else entirely. She clutched her laptop tighter. They thought they were escorting her out. They didn't realize they were walking a live grenade into the heart of their own legal department. The elevator doors opened. Linda gestured for her to enter. Elena stepped inside, turned around, and watched the doors slide shut, cutting off the view of the office, the servers, and the man who thought he had won. The elevator descent was smooth, silent, and suffocating. It wasn't the sensation of falling that made Elena's stomach turn. It was the hermetically sealed quiet. The air inside the cabin smelled faintly of lemon disinfectant and stale recycled oxygen, the scent of corporate sterilization. Beside her, Linda, the HR director, stared straight ahead at the brushed steel doors, her reflection distorted into a funhouse mirror image of bureaucratic indifference. Linda didn't speak. She didn't fidget. She simply existed as a courier of bad news, her posture rigid, clutching the manila envelope against her chest like a shield. Elena watched the floor numbers tick down on the digital display. Each number felt like a heartbeat skipped, a step further away from the world she had built and deeper into the belly of the machine that was about to chew her up. When the doors slid open on the 12th floor, the atmosphere shifted instantly. If the 40th floor was the brain of Ethereos, electric, chaotic, messy, the 12th floor was the kidneys. It was filtration. It was waste management. The carpet here was a duller shade of gray, the lighting flatter, the cubicles higher. There was no hum of servers, no click-clack of mechanical keyboards, only the low murmur of hushed phone calls and the rhythmic thud-thud-thud of a stapler somewhere in the distance. Linda walked briskly, her heels sinking into the plush carpet, leading the way to a corner office with frosted glass walls. Elena followed, feeling a strange dissociation, as if she were watching herself from a security camera mounted in the ceiling. Her hands were cold. Her mind, usually a storm of algorithms and syntax, was oddly blank, like a terminal waiting for a command prompt. Linda opened the door and gestured for Elena to sit. The office was aggressively neutral. Inspirational posters about synergy and resilience hung on the walls, framing a generic landscape painting that looked like it had been bought by the square foot. Across the desk sat a man Elena didn't recognize. A lawyer, presumably, judging by the pinstripes and the predatory stillness with which he watched her enter. He didn't offer a hand. He just nodded, tapping a pen against a stack of documents. "Please have a seat, Ms. Vance," the lawyer said. His voice was dry like shifting sand. "My name is Arthur Pym. I represent Ethereos legal counsel." Elena sat. The chair was comfortable, designed to lull you into submission. "Am I being sued?" she asked, her voice sounding small in the acoustic dampening of the room. "No, not at all," Linda said, taking her seat next to Pym. She finally placed the envelope on the desk, sliding it forward with 2 fingers. "As I mentioned upstairs, the company is undergoing a strategic realignment. The Chimera project is moving from an R&D phase into a maintenance and operations phase. This shift requires a different set of skills and a different budget structure." "Strategic realignment," Elena repeated, tasting the words. They tasted like ash. "You mean you're firing me?" "We prefer the term involuntary separation due to redundancy," Pym corrected, opening a folder. "Your role as lead architect is no longer required. The architecture is complete. The heavy lifting is done. The company is grateful for your contribution, of course. The heavy lifting is done because I did it, Elena said, her voice rising slightly. She gripped the armrests of the chair. The system launches in 48 hours. You don't fire the architect 2 days before the ribbon cutting. If something goes wrong during the handshake with the Tokyo Exchange, Mr. Thorne has assured us that the system is stable and fully autonomous. Linda interrupted, her tone smooth and rehearsed. He has full confidence in the junior team's ability to handle the monitoring. Marcus, of course. Elena felt a flash of heat behind her eyes. He had planned this. The requests for documentation, the sudden interest in her simplifying the code explanations, the way he had hovered over her for weeks. He wasn't managing her. He was harvesting her. He was extracting every ounce of her intellectual property before discarding the husk. This isn't about stability, Elena said, looking from Linda to Pim. This is about my vesting schedule. The room went silent. Pim stopped tapping his pen. Linda adjusted her glasses. My stock options. Elena continued, the realization sharpening into a blade. I have 2% equity in Chimera vesting next month. On the 1st of the month. If the valuation hits the projections Marcus is throwing around, that 2% is worth. She did the math instantly. For $1 million. The terms of your contract are quite clear, Ms. Vance, Pim said, his voice dropping an octave, becoming harder. Options vest only for active employees. As your employment is terminating effective immediately, all unvested options are forfeited and returned to the company pool. You're stealing from me, Elena whispered. I built it. I wrote every line. You're firing me 2 weeks before payday so you can keep the equity. We are exercising our right to manage our workforce, Pim said, sliding a document toward her. This is a separation agreement. It includes a standard severance package, 3 months' pay, in exchange for a complete waiver of claims and a reaffirmation of your non-disclosure agreement. You will not speak to the press. You will not disparage the company or Mr. Thorne. You will not claim ownership of any IP developed during your tenure. Elena looked at the paper. It was a tombstone. Separation agreement. It was so clean, so legal. They were robbing her in broad daylight, using a pen instead of a gun. And if I don't sign? Elena asked. Pim smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Then you leave with nothing. No severance. And we will be forced to contest your unemployment claim based on performance issues. Performance issues? Elena laughed. A harsh, jagged sound. I just optimized the core kernel 6 hours ago. We have reports of insubordination, Linda added softly, looking at her fingernails. Disagreements with management. Failure to adhere to UI specifications. The mobile logo. The lie Marcus had told Sterling. They had been building a paper trail. They had framed her. The trap had been set weeks ago, and she had walked right into it, too busy looking at the code to see the knife. Elena stared at the document. 3 months' pay was barely enough to cover rent in San Francisco for a season. But the money wasn't the point. The point was the erasure. They were going to scrub her name from history. Marcus would be the genius, the visionary, the billionaire. She would be a footnote. A disgruntled ex-employee who couldn't hack it. She picked up the pen. The plastic felt cold. Fine, she said. Smart choice, Pim said. She signed her name. Elena Vance. The signature looked jagged, angry. She pushed the paper back. I need to get my things, she said, standing up. Standard procedure requires a supervised exit, Linda said, standing up as well. We've assigned an IT associate to escort you to your desk to collect personal effects. You are not permitted to access the network or copy any company data. Your credentials have already been revoked. Fine, Elena said again. She turned to the door, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. She needed to get back to that terminal. She needed 1 minute. Just 1 minute. The escort was waiting in the hallway. It wasn't a security guard. It was worse. It was Kevin, the front-end developer from the morning meeting. The guy who cared more about his hair than his code. He looked embarrassed. shifting his weight from foot to foot, holding a cardboard box. "Hey, Elena," he mumbled, not meeting her eyes. "Sorry about, let's just get this over with." "Kevin," Elena said, walking past him toward the elevator. The ride back up to the 40th floor was excruciating. Kevin tried to make small talk about the weather, about a new taco place in the Mission. Elena stared at the steel doors, her mind racing. Credentials revoked. That meant she couldn't log in. She couldn't deploy a virus even if she wanted to. She couldn't delete the repo. But they had made a mistake. A subtle, arrogant mistake. They assumed the system was a static object. Finished building. They didn't understand that Chimera was a living organism. It breathed, checked its own pulse. And right now, its pulse was tied to the developer environment. The elevator opened. The 40th floor was louder now. The pre-launch adrenaline was peaking. People were running back and forth. Nobody looked at Elena. She was a ghost walking among the living. The social death of the corporate world. Once you are fired, you become invisible before you even leave the building. They reached her desk. It looked exactly as she had left it, the coffee cup still there, the wrapper still crumpled. Felt like a crime scene. "Okay," Kevin said, placing the box on her desk. "Just, personal stuff. No hard drives, no USBs. I have to watch the screen if you turn it on. I just need to wipe my personal email from the browser," Elena said. "And I have some photos of my cat on the desktop." Kevin shrugged. "Yeah, sure. Just be quick. Marcus is, Elena sat down. She opened her laptop. Her fingers trembled. Just once, then steadied. She hit the power button. The login screen appeared. User E_Vance. She typed her password. Entropy_7734. Please let the local cache still be active. Please let the revocation propagation have a lag." The desktop loaded. She was in. "Hey!" Kevin stepped closer, peering over her shoulder. "You're not supposed to be on the intranet." "I'm not," Elena said, her voice calm, deadly calm. "Just clearing the local cache. You don't want my personal cookies cluttering up the machine for the next guy, right?" "I guess," Kevin said, checking his phone. Elena moved the mouse. She didn't go to the browser. She opened the terminal. It was a black window, invisible to the uninitiated eye amidst the clutter of icons. She had 60 seconds before Kevin realized what she was doing. Maybe less. She didn't try to delete Chimera. She didn't try to steal it. She did something far more elegant. She navigated to the root directory of the authentication module, the heart of the security system she had built to be impenetrable. She typed furiously, vim/src/core/auth/handshake. CPP. The code sprawled out before her. Her masterpiece. She scrolled down to the integrity check function. The system was designed to verify the environment every 24 hours to prevent unauthorized cloning. If the environment didn't match the signature, the system would assume it had been stolen and locked down. She added 3 lines of code. #include user_verification. Bool check _admin_status. If user exists, E_Vance. Throw security exception. Critical. Architect MIA. She embedded the call to this function inside the primary decryption loop. It wasn't a bomb. It wasn't malicious code. It was a dependency. She was making her own employment status a structural load-bearing wall of the entire application. "What's that?" Kevin asked, squinting at the black screen. "That looks like code. Just a cleanup script?" Elena lied, her heart thumping so hard she thought he must hear it. "Deleting my temp files is faster via command line. You know how it is. Right? Hacker style." Kevin chuckled, clueless. Elena verified the syntax. It was perfect. The logic was simple. Every time Chimera tried to access its encrypted database, which it did constantly to trade, it would first check the Active Directory. Is Elena Vance here? If yes, proceed. If no, exception. But she couldn't trigger it now. If she triggered it now, they would know it was her. It needed a delay. She looked at the cron jobs. The system updated its user cache every night at midnight. She saved the file. WQ. She recompiled the local library. Make install. Took 4 seconds. For seconds where the universe held its breath. Build successful. All done, Elena said, snapping the laptop shut. The terminal vanished. The evidence vanished. The code was now woven into the binary executable, buried under millions of lines of assembly. She stood up. She swept the old coffee mug and the stress ball into the cardboard box. She grabbed a small framed photo of her parents. That's it, Kevin asked. That's it, Elena said. She picked up the box. It was light physically, but it felt heavy with the weight of what she had just done. She hadn't destroyed the company. She had just handed them a car that required a specific key to start. A key they had just thrown into the furnace. They walked to the elevators. This time, Kevin didn't try to make small talk. He seemed relieved to be done with the awkward duty. As the elevator doors opened, Elena looked back one last time. She saw Marcus standing at the far end of the office, surrounded by a group of investors. He was laughing, his head thrown back, pointing at the massive screen where the Chimera logo pulsed. He looked like a king surveying his kingdom. Enjoy the throne, Marcus, she thought. I hope it's comfortable. You have exactly 36 hours before the castle crumbles. She stepped into the elevator. The doors closed, severing her connection to Ethereos. The walk to the parking garage was a blur. The sunlight outside was blinding, offensive in its cheerfulness. She found her car, a modest sedan parked between 2 Teslas. She threw the box into the passenger seat. She sat behind the wheel, gripping it until her knuckles turned white. She expected to cry. She waited for the tears, for the fear, for the panic of unemployment to set in. But it didn't come. Instead, a cold, hard smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. She pulled her phone out of her pocket. She opened her calendar app. Friday, 0:01 a.m. Chimera Global Launch. She set a new notification for herself. Friday, 0:05 a.m. Buy popcorn. She started the engine. The radio blared to life, playing some mindless pop song. Elena turned it up. She drove out of the garage, merging into the traffic of Silicon Valley, just another ant in the hill. But unlike the other ants, she carried a detonator in her mind. She drove home, the city skyline retreating in her rearview mirror. The Ethereos tower pierced the sky, a gleaming needle of glass and hubris. They wanted a machine that could think. She gave them one. She gave them a machine that knew the difference between loyalty and betrayal. When she got to her apartment, she didn't unpack the box. She placed it by the door. She went to the kitchen, opened a bottle of cheap Pinot Noir, and poured a glass. She sat on her balcony, looking at the fog rolling in over the bay. Her phone buzzed. A LinkedIn notification. Marcus Thorne posted a new update. So proud to announce that Chimera is ready to change the world. Innovation is a solo journey, but the view from the top is worth it. #TechVisionary #Ethereos. Elena liked the post. Then she took a sip of wine and waited for the world to burn. The champagne in the crystal flute was vintage Dom Perignon, chilled to precisely 42 degrees, but to Marcus Thorne it tasted like battery acid and adrenaline. He stood on the raised mezzanine of the Ethereos atrium, one hand resting casually on the brass railing, the other clutching the stem of his glass so tightly his knuckles were white. Below him, the cream of Silicon Valley's crop mingled in a sea of tuxedos and designer gowns. There were venture capitalists who could buy small countries, tech journalists hungry for a scoop, and competitors who had come to witness either a coronation or a funeral. The air smelled of expensive perfume, past hors d'oeuvres, and the thick electric musk of money. You look like you're about to be sick, Marcus, a gravelly voice murmured beside him. Marcus didn't turn. He kept his eyes on the massive, 60-foot LED wall that dominated the far side of the room. Currently, it displayed a stylized, looping animation of the Chimera logo, a 3-headed beast formed of flowing, golden data streams. I'm not sick, Sterling. I'm focused. It's the precipice of history. Nerves are natural. Sterling, the CEO, took a sip of his scotch. He was a man built of squares, square jaw, square shoulders, square worldview. He didn't care about the code. He cared about the stock price, which had already risen 14% in after-hours trading just on the rumor of tonight's success. Don't be nervous. Be right. The Asian markets open in 12 minutes. If this thing stutters, if it hesitates for even a microsecond, the sharks down there will smell blood. It won't stutter, Marcus said, forcing a smile that felt like it was plastered on with glue. The architecture is flawless, autonomous, self-correcting. It's the singularity of finance, Sterling. Relax. I don't relax, Sterling said flatly. I count. Marcus walked away before his twitching eye became noticeable. He navigated the crowd, accepting handshakes and backslaps. Congratulations, Marcus. Genius work, Thorne. Heard you're aiming for the cover of Forbes. He nodded, he winked, he played the part of the visionary architect. But beneath the tailored tuxedo, sweat was trickling down his spine. He hadn't slept in 36 hours. Since Elena left, the junior team had been running diagnostic after diagnostic. The system was green. Everything was green. But deep in his gut, Marcus felt a phantom itch. He kept thinking about Elena's face in the elevator. That calm, that terrifying, serene acceptance. People who are fired don't look like that. They cry, they scream, or they look broken. Elena had looked amused. He checked his watch. 11:52 p.m. 8 minutes to midnight. 8 minutes until the Chimera protocol went live and connected to the high-frequency trading servers in Tokyo, London, and New York simultaneously. 10 miles away, in a dimly lit apartment in Oakland, the atmosphere was very different. There was no champagne, only a half-empty bottle of Pinot Noir breathing on the coffee table. Elena Vance sat cross-legged on her sofa, her laptop open on her knees. The only light in the room came from the screen and the glow of the street lamps outside filtering through the blinds. She wasn't looking at the Ethereum's internal network. She didn't need to. She was looking at the public API status page for the Tokyo Stock Exchange, and a secondary window running a script she had written to monitor Ethereum's public-facing handshake port. "Come on, Marcus," she whispered, swirling the wine in her glass. "Show the world what you built." She took a sip. The silence in the apartment was heavy, but it wasn't lonely. It was the silence of a hunter waiting in a blind. She adjusted the volume on her TV, which was tuned to the live broadcast of the launch event. She saw Marcus on the screen, stepping up to the podium, the microphone gleam catching the stage lights. He looked good, she had to admit. He looked like he belonged there. That was his talent, looking the part. Her talent was making sure the part actually worked. On the screen, Marcus raised his hands, silencing the applause. "Ladies and gentlemen," his voice boomed through the TV speakers and the atrium simultaneously. "For decades, we have traded based on intuition, on fear, on speculation. Tonight, we end the era of guessing. Tonight, we introduce the era of knowing." He gestured dramatically to the giant screen behind him. A digital countdown appeared. "Chimera is not just an algorithm," Marcus continued, his voice dropping to a theatrical whisper. "It is a shield. It is a sword. It is the first fully autonomous financial intelligence. It doesn't just predict the market. It understands it." Elena snorted softly. "It understands it because I fed it 3 petabytes of historical data, you hack." She looked at her laptop. Her script was pinging the Ethereum server. Response 200 OK. The system was online. It was idling, waiting for the trigger. The Zero Trust protocol she had installed, the check for her user ID, was buried deep in the execution logic. It wouldn't trigger during the idle phase. It would only trigger when the system attempted to execute a write command to the secure ledger. When it tried to move money, the countdown on the TV ticked down. The music in the atrium swelled, a Hans Zimmer-esque orchestral piece that vibrated in the chests of the audience. The lights dimmed, focusing entirely on the giant screen. Marcus stepped back from the podium, looking up at his creation. He felt a surge of pure, unadulterated ego. He had done it. He had gotten rid of Elena, cut the costs, and kept the glory. The junior devs said the dashboard was clean. The system was ready. The crowd began to count along. 10, 9, 8. Elena put her wine glass down. She leaned forward. Her heart rate didn't spike. She felt a cold, mathematical precision settling over her. 3, 2, 1. Initiate, Marcus whispered. On the giant screen, the golden logo exploded into 1,000,000 particles of light, which then reformed into a complex, rotating globe of data streams. Graphs appeared. Numbers began to scroll. The text status. Online flashed in reassuring green. The crowd erupted. Champagne corks popped. Sterling raised his glass to Marcus from the front row. For exactly 45 seconds, everything was perfect. Chimera connected to the Tokyo exchange. It analyzed the opening volatility. It identified an arbitrage opportunity in the yen-dollar spread, prepared the order, and then it tried to sign the trade. To sign the trade, the system needed to access the master encryption key. To access the key, the system ran the integrity check _admin_status. The function queried the Active Directory. Query: is user E_Vance active? Response: false. Logic: admin missing. Potential intrusion detected. Initiate lockdown. On the giant screen, the beautiful, flowing golden streams froze. The crowd didn't notice at first. They were too busy cheering. But Marcus noticed. He saw the refresh rate drop to 0. He saw the ticker stop moving. Then the color shifted. It wasn't a subtle fade. It was a violent, jarring snap. The soothing green and gold palette was instantly replaced by a stark, aggressive crimson. The globe of data collapsed into a single, blinking icon. A padlock. A low, discordant bass tone emitted from the speakers, cutting through the applause like a foghorn. The cheering faltered. Heads turned. The room grew quiet, confused. "What's that?" someone asked. "Is that part of the show?" On the screen, text began to scroll. Not the stock prices. Not the profit margins. Fatal exception. Integrity violation. Root access required. System lockdown initiated. Encrypting assets. Marcus felt the blood drain from his face so fast he nearly fainted. He tapped his earpiece. Control? Control. What is happening? Cut the feed. Cut the screen. We can't. The voice of the lead operations tech screamed in his ear, panic distorting the audio. It's locked us out. The console isn't responding. Encrypting assets. Cut the power. Marcus shrieked, no longer caring about the microphone. Kill it. The crowd was murmuring now, a sound like rising water. Sterling was standing up, his face a mask of fury. Suddenly, the screen changed again. The red background remained, but a new message box popped up in the center, magnified to be 50 feet tall. It was a system dialog box. A standard, boring system error message that was now looming over the most expensive party in San Francisco. Error 403, authentication failed. Critical dependency missing. User ID interference not found. Please contact system administrator. The name hung there, _Vance. Elena took a sip of her wine. Cheers, boys, she whispered to the empty room. Back at the atrium, the silence was absolute. Everyone was staring at the name. Everyone knew who Vance was. Or rather, everyone in the industry knew the rumors. The brilliant architect who had been quietly let go. Sterling stormed up the stairs to the mezzanine, moving with the speed of a linebacker. He grabbed Marcus by the lapel of his tuxedo, bunching the expensive fabric. "What?" Sterling hissed, spitting flecks of saliva onto Marcus's face. "Is that?" "It's a bug," Marcus stammered, his hands shaking uncontrollably. "A legacy tag. She must have left a tag in the code. The screen says the system is encrypting our assets. Marcus says it's locking down. That's not a bug. That's a seizure." Sterling shoved him toward the exit. "Get to the war room. Fix it. Now, if I lose a single cent, I will feed you to the SEC." Marcus scrambled, nearly tripping over his own feet as he ran toward the service elevators. The party was dissolving into chaos behind him. Phones were out. The journalists were typing furiously. Ethereo's launch fail. System hijacked. Who is E_Vance? The war room, the network operations center on the 30th floor, was a scene of pandemonium. Red lights were flashing physically on the server racks. The cooling fans had spun up to maximum RPM, creating a deafening roar like a jet engine taking off. The junior developers were huddled around the main console, looking like deer caught in the headlights of a semi-truck. Report! Marcus screamed as he burst through the doors. Talk to me. It's gone, Marcus. Kevin, the lead junior dev, said. He was pale, sweating through his hoodie. It's all gone. What do you mean gone? The servers are right there. The data, Kevin said, pointing at his monitor. Look at the entropy levels. The system detected an intrusion. It triggered the deadbolt protocol. It's rewriting the entire database with 4096-bit encryption. Stop it. Override it. We can't. Kevin yelled back, his voice cracking. We don't have the key. The key is dynamic. It generates based on the handshake. Marcus shoved Kevin out of the chair and hammered on the keyboard. Sudo kill all Chimera_core response. Access denied. Sudo shutdown, H now response. System busy. Critical process protected. He stared at the screen. The encryption progress bar was at 85%. Why? Marcus whispered. Why is it doing this? He pulled up the error log. He scrolled past thousands of lines of execution code until he found the breakpoint. Line 4502. Executing check_admin_status. Querying Active Directory for user_Vance result. Null action. Threat_detected. Initiate_. Marcus froze. The code wasn't malicious. It wasn't a virus. It was loyal. It was checking for its mother. And because he had killed the mother, the child was screaming. It's checking for her account, Marcus said, his voice hollow. It thinks we're hackers because Elena isn't here. So create an account for her. Sterling's voice boomed from the doorway. He had followed them down. He looked less like a CEO now and more like a mob boss who had just lost a shipment. Make a fake account. Name it Vance. I tried that. Kevin said. It doesn't work. The system hashes the user creation date. It knows a new account isn't the original account. It needs the specific GUID, globally unique identifier of her old profile, which we deleted, Marcus realized. We purged the Active Directory yesterday, so restore it from backup. Sterling roared. We wiped the backups, Marcus admitted, his voice barely a whisper. To ensure no data leaks. Best practice. Sterling stared at him. For a second, Marcus thought the older man was going to hit him. Instead, Sterling walked over to the main screen. The encryption was at 95%. So, Sterling said, his voice dangerously calm. Let me understand this. We have built a billion-dollar car. We fired the only person with the keys. And then we melted the spare keys. The system thinks it's being stolen, Marcus explained, pleading. It's a security feature. Elena built it too well. Fix it, Sterling said. I can't. I don't have the encryption seed. I didn't say type on the keyboard, you idiot, Sterling snarled. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He slammed it onto the desk in front of Marcus. The glass screen cracked. Call her. Marcus stared at the phone. She won't answer. She better answer, Sterling said, leaning in close. Because right now, the Tokyo market is opening. Our trading bot is offline. Our investors are calling my personal line. And every second this system is down, Ethereos bleeds approximately $50,000. Call her. Marcus picked up the phone. His fingers felt numb. He dialed the number he had deleted from his contacts list 2 days ago, but which he still knew by heart. Ring. The sound echoed in the silent war room. Every eye was on Marcus. Ring. Come on, Marcus muttered. Ring. She's screening us, Kevin whispered. Ring. On the fourth ring, the line clicked open. Hello? The voice was clear, calm. and utterly unbothered. There was the faint sound of jazz music in the background. Marcus swallowed dryly. "Elena?" "Speaking," she said. "Who is this?" "It's Marcus," he choked out. "Marcus Thorne." "Oh," Elena said. "Marcus, I'm surprised to hear from you. Shouldn't you be giving a toast right now? I was watching the live stream, but the feed cut out. Did something happen?" She knew. She absolutely knew. "Elena, we have a problem," Marcus said, trying to summon some authority but failing miserably. "The Chimera system crashed." "Crashed?" Elena sounded politely concerned. "That's odd. It was running at 99.9% efficiency when I handed it over. Did you change the oil?" "It's the authentication module," Marcus said, sweating profusely. "It's asking for your user ID. It's locked us out. It's encrypting the database." "Ah," Elena said. Yes. The Zero Trust Protocol. I believe I mentioned in my documentation that the lead architect needs to verify the environment periodically." "You didn't put that in the documentation," Marcus shouted, losing his cool. "I'm pretty sure I did," Elena replied coolly. "Or maybe I was going to, but then I was escorted out of the building by a junior developer before I could finish my handover. It's all very hazy." "Elena, listen," Marcus said, his voice dropping to a desperate beg. "You need to give us the password, or the bypass code, whatever it is. We are dead in the water here." "I can't do that, Marcus," she said. "Why not?" "Because that would be a violation of company policy," she said, her voice dripping with irony. "Sharing credentials with unauthorized personnel? That's a fireable offense. And since I'm already fired, I suppose I could be sued." Mr. Pym was very clear about the legal ramifications of touching company data. Sterling snatched the phone from Marcus's hand. He put it to his ear. "Ms. Vance," Sterling barked. "This is Sterling. Cut the crap. We are in a crisis. The company is at risk." "Mr. Sterling," Elena's voice remained unruffled. "I am a private citizen sitting in my living room. Your company's crisis is not my problem. My problem is that I'm trying to watch a movie and my phone keeps ringing." "We will pay you," Sterling said. "Consulting fee. Standard rate." "No," Elena said. "Double rate." "No." "What do you want?" Sterling ground out. "Name it." There was a pause on the other end of the line. A long, thoughtful silence. In the war room, the encryption bar hit 99%. System lockdown imminent. "I want Marcus on the line," Elena said. Sterling shoved the phone back at Marcus. "She wants you." Marcus took the phone. "I'm here." "Marcus?" Elena said, her voice dropping the polite facade, becoming hard as diamond. "Do you remember what you told me in the elevator? Innovation is a solo journey?" "Elena, please. I want you to admit it," she said. "Admit what?" "Admit that you didn't write it. Admit that you don't know how it works. Admit that you need me." Marcus looked around the room. The junior devs were watching. Sterling was watching. The screen was flashing red. The humiliation was total. His voice cracked. "I didn't write it." "Louder," she said. "I didn't write it," he yelled, tears of frustration stinging his eyes. "I don't know how it works. I need you. Is that what you want? I need you to save me." "I don't care about saving you, Marcus," Elena said. "But I do care about my code. It hates to be broken. So help us." "I am a consultant now, Marcus," Elena said. "My services are expensive, and I have conditions." "Anything," Marcus sobbed. "Just stop the encryption. Put Sterling back on." Marcus handed the phone to the CEO. "We have a deal?" Elena asked. "Send the contract," Sterling said, defeated. "I'll be there in 20 minutes, Elena said. "Have security clear the gate, and tell Marcus to get out of my chair." The line went dead. On the big screen, the progress bar hit 100%. System locked. Awaiting administrator. Sterling looked at the phone, then at Marcus. "You," Sterling said, pointing a shaking finger at his former golden boy. "Get out of her chair." and then get out of my sight. Marcus slumped against the console. The party upstairs was over. The hangover was just beginning. The drive back to the Ethereos Tower was a study in surrealism. The streets of San Francisco were draped in a wet, heavy fog that diffused the streetlights into glowing orange nebulas, turning the city into a dreamscape. Elena Vance drove with the radio off, the silence inside her sedan acting as a decompression chamber. She wasn't speeding. She stayed perfectly within the limit, letting the rhythm of the tires against the asphalt steady her pulse. 40 minutes ago, she had been a discarded component, a piece of hardware thrown into the scrap heap. Now, she was the only mechanic in the world with the wrench that could fix the engine. The power dynamic had flipped so violently it was almost dizzying, but Elena didn't let herself feel giddy. Giddiness led to mistakes, and code did not forgive mistakes. As the obsidian monolith of the Ethereos headquarters came into view, piercing the fog like a jagged shard of glass, she saw the chaos before she reached the gate. The meticulously curated launch party had spilled out onto the plaza. Limousines were gridlocked in the circular driveway, their red taillights painting streaks of panic in the mist. Men in tuxedos were shouting into cell phones, pacing frantically on the sidewalk, while women in shivering silk gowns huddled under the heated overhangs, looking confused and abandoned. The illusion of perfection that Marcus Thorne had spent millions to cultivate had shattered, leaving behind a messy reality of angry investors and frightened board members. Elena pulled up to the security checkpoint. The guard booth, usually manned by a stern-faced contractor who demanded ID with the fervor of a border agent, was currently occupied by a terrified-looking young man she didn't recognize. He was on the phone, nodding vigorously. When he saw her car, a 10-year-old Honda amidst a sea of Mercedes and Bentleys, he didn't wave her away. He dropped the phone and scrambled to hit the gate release, nearly tripping over his own feet. He didn't ask for a badge. He didn't ask for a name. He just opened the barrier as if she were royalty returning from exile. She parked in her old spot, the one in the far corner of the garage where the dripping pipe left mineral stains on the concrete. It was empty. Of course it was. They hadn't filled her position yet. She grabbed her laptop bag. Not the company-issued one she had returned, but her own battered leather satchel, and walked toward the elevators. The garage was silent, a stark contrast to the hysteria she knew was waiting upstairs. She pressed the button. The arrow lit up, going up. When the doors opened on the lobby level, the noise hit her like a physical wave. It was a cacophony of overlapping voices, the sharp clink of glassware being hurriedly cleared, and the low, throbbing bass of the sound system that someone had forgotten to turn off. Elena walked through the crowd, cutting a path through the bewildered elite. She was wearing jeans and a hooded sweatshirt, a deliberate choice. She wasn't here to blend in. She wasn't here to play the corporate game. She was the IT support and she dressed for the job. "Excuse me," she said softly, stepping around a pair of venture capitalists who were arguing about liquidity. They looked at her with disdain for a split second, until they saw the badge in her hand. A temporary visitor past the guard had thrust at her, and the grim determination in her eyes. They moved. Everyone moved. It was as if she carried a localized force field. She reached the secure elevator bank that led to the upper floors. A security guard she knew, an older man named Sam, was standing guard, blocking a reporter who was trying to sneak past. Sam saw her. His eyes widened, and a look of profound relief washed over his face. "Ms. Vance," Sam said, stepping aside and swiping his master key card to call the express car. "They're waiting for you. It's bad up there." "I know, Sam," Elena said, stepping into the car. "Thanks." The doors closed, sealing out the noise of the lobby. The ascent to the 30th floor took 15 seconds. In those 15 seconds, Elena closed her eyes and visualized the code she had written. She saw the structure of the authentication loop, the conditional logic of the check_admin_status function, the encryption algorithm that was currently eating the company's data alive. It wasn't a monster to her. It was a guard dog doing exactly what it was trained to do. Bite the intruder. The doors opened on the 30th floor. The Network Operations Center, affectionately known as the War Room, was down the hall. The glass walls that usually offered a view of the server racks were now opaque with condensation, the room inside heated by the overclocked machines and the collective body heat of 20 panicked engineers. Elena pushed the door open. The smell hit her first. The acrid tang of ozone, stale coffee, and fear. The room was bathed in the emergency crimson lighting of the server alerts. Every screen on the main wall was flashing the same message. System lockdown. Encryption active. The conversation in the room died instantly. 20 heads turned. Sterling was standing by the main console, his tie loosened, his face a mask of purple rage. Next to him, slumped in an ergonomic chair that looked like it was swallowing him whole, was Marcus Thorne. He looked like a man who had aged 10 years in 2 hours. His tuxedo was rumpled, his hair was a mess, and he was staring at the floor. "You're late," Sterling barked, though there was no real bite in his voice, only desperation. "Traffic was bad," Elena said calmly. She didn't stop walking until she was standing in the center of the room, directly in front of the main console. She looked at the screens. The encryption progress bar was frozen at 100%. The system was now fully locked. A digital fortress. "Fix it," Sterling said, gesturing to the keyboard. "Just turn it off. Unlock the database. The Tokyo market is already 40 minutes into the session. We are losing volume by the second." Elena didn't move toward the keyboard. She stood still, her hands in the pockets of her hoodie. She looked at Marcus. "Get up," she said. It wasn't a shout. It was a simple command, spoken with the absolute authority of someone who owns the ground they are standing on. Marcus looked up. His eyes were red-rimmed. He looked at Sterling for help, but the CEO was staring at the wall, refusing to make eye contact. Marcus slowly pushed himself out of the chair. It was the chair Elena had sat in for 2 years. The chair where she had drunk cold coffee and eaten vending machine dinners while Marcus was out schmoozing investors. I tried to bypass the... Marcus started to mumble. "I didn't ask for a status report, Marcus." Elena cut him off. "I asked you to move." Marcus shuffled away, retreating to the corner of the room where the junior developers were huddled. Elena looked at the chair. She didn't sit down. Instead, she turned to Sterling. "The contract," she said. Sterling blinked. "What?" "The consulting contract," Elena said. "I told you on the phone. I don't touch the keyboard until the paperwork is signed." "For God's sake, Elena," Sterling exploded, slamming his hand on the desk. "The building is burning down and you're worried about paperwork? I'll pay you. I gave you my word." "Your word was that my stock options were safe," Elena said, her voice dropping the temperature in the room by another 10 degrees. "Your word was that my employment was secure. Your word, Mr. Sterling, has been devalued. I prefer ink." She reached into her bag and pulled out a stapled document. She had stopped at a 24-hour Kinko's on the way. It wasn't a long contract. 3 pages. Standard independent contractor agreement with a few custom clauses she had typed up in the car. She slid it across the desk toward Arthur Pym, the company lawyer who was lurking in the shadows. Pym looked like he wanted to vomit. He picked up the document, his hands shaking slightly. "Mr. Sterling," Pym whispered, scanning the page. This indemnity clause is extremely broad. And the fee structure. She's asking for a retainer of $2 million. Non-refundable, plus an hourly rate of $500,000. $2 million. Sterling choked. "You said $500 an hour. That was the price when I was at home," Elena said, shrugging. "Then I had to drive through fog. Hazard pay. Plus, the retainer covers the intellectual property transfer. You see, since I was fired before the project launched, and since Marcus claimed authorship of code he didn't write, the copyright status of Chimera is murky. This contract clarifies that. Ethereos pays me $2 million, and I retroactively assign the IP rights to you. It's a bargain, really. It saves you years of litigation." "This is extortion," Marcus hissed from the corner. Elena turned to him, a small, dangerous smile playing on her lips. "No, Marcus. Extortion is threatening to ruin someone's career to save a few percentage points of equity. This is just consulting." She turned back to Sterling. Clock is ticking, Raymond. The encryption is stable now, but in about 10 minutes, the system is scheduled to run a garbage collection cycle. Since the database is encrypted, the garbage collector might mistake the encrypted blobs for corrupt data and delete them. If that happens, you don't just lose access. You lose the data. Forever. It was a bluff. A total fabrication. She had written the garbage collector herself. It knew better than to touch locked files. But Sterling didn't know that. Pym didn't know that. And Marcus certainly didn't know that. The color drained from Sterling's face. He snatched the pen from Pym's pocket. "Where do I sign?" he snarled. "Bottom of page 3, Elena said. "And initial the clause about the public apology." "Apology?" Sterling looked up, pen hovering. "A press release," Elena clarified, "goes out tomorrow morning, stating that the technical failure was due to a management error in personnel resource allocation, and acknowledging me as the sole architect of the Chimera core. It's already drafted. It's Exhibit A." Sterling ground his teeth so hard Elena could hear them clicking. He looked at the flashing red screens. He looked at the terrified faces of his employees. He looked at the contract. He signed. He slashed his signature across the paper like he was trying to cut it in half. "There." He threw the pen down. "It's done. Now fix it." Elena picked up the contract. She checked the signature. She checked the initials. She folded it neatly and placed it back in her bag. "Thank you for your business," she said. She sat down. The chair molded to her back. Felt familiar. Felt right. She pulled the keyboard closer. The mechanical keys clicked as she woke the terminal. The room held its breath. 20 people leaned forward. Elena didn't type a complex stream of code. She didn't frantically hack the mainframe. She simply opened the command prompt and typed, "Login E_Vance." The system paused. "Password." She typed her old password. "Entropy_7734. The screen blinked. A text cursor pulsed. "Authentication successful. Welcome back, architect." A collective gasp went through the room. It just let her in," Kevin whispered. "It was just a login screen?" "It wasn't just a login screen," Elena said without turning around. "It was a handshake. The system was waiting for the private key stored on my user profile. You can't force a door that only opens from the inside." She began to type now, faster. "Sudo run_decryption_sequence. Key equals master. Verifying _integrity. Okay. Initiating _unlock." The giant wall of screens shifted. The angry red receded, replaced by a wave of soothing, cool blue. The padlock icon shattered and dissolved into the familiar stream of golden data. The graphs reappeared. The ticker started moving again. Status. Online. Trading resumed. "We're live," a text shouted from the back. "Connection to Tokyo reestablished. Latency is nominal. We're executing trades." "Oh, thank God," Pym exhaled, leaning against the wall. Sterling slumped against the desk, wiping sweat from his forehead with his silk handkerchief. He looked at the screen, watching the millions of dollars flowing back into the pipeline. The crisis was over. The money was safe. But Elena wasn't done. "I'm doing a system purge," she announced, "cleaning up the encryption artifacts. And I'm installing a patch to prevent this from happening again." "Good," Sterling said, his voice returning to its usual gruffness. "Patch it. Make sure it never asks for you again." "Oh, it won't," Elena said, her fingers flying across the keys. "I'm removing the user ID dependency. I'm replacing it with a standard RSA token system. You can give the token to Marcus, or Kevin, or whoever you want. Just get it done," Sterling said. Elena typed the final command. She wasn't just patching the system. She was doing something else. She was extracting the soul of Chimera. The predictive intuition engine, the heuristic learning model, the part of the code that made it special. She was decoupling it from the Ethereo's proprietary shell. She was leaving them the engine, but she was taking the spark plugs. The system would run. It would trade. It would make money. But it would never evolve. It would never be the genius AI Marcus had promised. It would just be a very fast calculator. and she was downloading a copy of her original, uncorrupted source code to an encrypted partition on her remote server. Transfer complete. She stood up. The screen was green. The room was buzzing with the sound of relief and renewed activity. "It's done," Elena said. "The system is stable. The dependency is removed. You have full control." She stepped away from the console. Sterling stood up straight, regaining his composure. He smoothed his tie. The fear was gone, replaced instantly by the arrogance that defined him. He looked at Elena, and for a moment, she thought he might thank her. The guests had dispersed, leaving behind a wreckage of empty glasses and abandoned napkins. The cleaning crew was already at work, sweeping up the remnants of the celebration that never really happened. Elena walked out the front doors into the San Francisco night. The fog had lifted slightly, revealing the stars above the city lights. The air was cold and crisp. She walked to her car, threw her bag into the passenger seat, and climbed in. She didn't go home immediately. Instead, she drove up to Twin Peaks, the overlook that offered a view of the entire Bay Area. She parked the car and looked down at the city. Somewhere down there, in the glowing forest of skyscrapers, the Ethereos Tower stood tall. It was back online. It was making money, but it was no longer hers. And she was okay with that, because she realized something as she looked at the lights. Chimera was just code. It was lines of text on a screen. She had written it once. She could write it again. Better, faster, stronger. And next time, she wouldn't build it for a man in a suit. She would build it for herself. She pulled out her phone and dialed a number. It rang twice before a sleepy voice answered. "Hello." "Hey, Sarah," Elena said. Sarah was her old roommate from college, a brilliant UI/UX designer who was currently wasting her talent at a generic app startup. "Elena? It's 2 a.m. Are you okay? I saw the news about Ethereos." "I'm fine, Sarah. I'm better than fine." Elena looked at the city lights. "Listen, remember that idea we had sophomore year? The decentralized banking platform? Yeah? The one we said was too ambitious?" "It's not too ambitious," Elena said. "Not anymore. I have the capital, and I have the back-end code. I need a front-end lead. Are you in?" There was a silence on the other end, then the rustle of bedsheets as Sarah sat up. The sleepiness vanished from her voice. "You're serious?" "Dead serious. I'm starting a new company. Tomorrow." "What are we calling it?" Sarah asked. Elena looked down at the Ethereos Tower one last time. "Nemesis," Elena said. The month that followed the Ethereos incident, as the trade journals were politely calling it, was a study in divergent realities. Time moved differently depending on which side of the bay you were on. In the glass and steel canyons of San Francisco, inside the boardroom of Ethereos Corp., time was a heavy, suffocating blanket that smelled of stale coffee and impending doom. But across the bridge, in a converted warehouse in Oakland that smelled of ozone and pepperoni pizza, time was a lightning bolt. Fast, electric, and dangerous. Marcus Thorne sat at the head of the mahogany table, staring at a projection that refused to cooperate with his ambitions. The graph on the wall showed a flat, uninspiring blue line. It wasn't crashing. Chimera was too robust to crash, thanks to the patch Elena had forced them to install, but it wasn't climbing. It was plateauing. And in Silicon Valley, a plateau was just a slow death. "Explain this to me again, Marcus," Sterling said. The CEO was standing by the window, looking out at the city with his back to the room. The posture was a power move, designed to make everyone stare at his silhouette. "The market is up 300 points this quarter. Volatility is high. That is the exact environment Chimera was designed to exploit. Yet, our returns are tracking the S&P 500 almost exactly. We're an index fund with $1 billion overhead." Marcus adjusted his collar. It felt too tight, a sensation that had become permanent over the last 30 days. "It's a calibration issue, sir. Since the migration, the system has become conservative. It's prioritizing asset protection over aggressive acquisition. We're tuning the risk parameters, but we have to be careful not to destabilize the core." "You're afraid to touch it," Sterling turned around, his eyes cold and hard. That's the truth, isn't it? You're terrified that if you type the wrong command, the red screen comes back. That's not true, Marcus lied, though his hands were clammy under the table. My team is fully in control. Your team? Sterling scoffed, walking back to the table and leaning over Marcus. Your team is a group of children who look at that code like it's a bomb. And you? You look like a man who's forgotten how to cut the wire. The board is asking about Phase 2, Marcus. The predictive sentiment analysis. The AI that reads the news before it happens. You promised it for Q3. Where is it? It's in development, Marcus said, his voice sounding thin. But without the previous architect's notes, we're having to reverse engineer some of the neural pathways. The previous architect, Sterling repeated, the words dripping with disdain. He picked up a copy of Wired magazine from the table and tossed it in front of Marcus. The cover didn't feature Marcus. It featured a silhouette of a woman standing in front of a wall of code. The headline read, The Ghost in the Machine, How Elena Vance Saved Ethereos from Itself. The public apology Sterling had been forced to issue had done its job. It had saved the stock price, but it had turned Elena into a folk hero and Marcus into a punchline. Fix the algorithm, Marcus, Sterling whispered, leaning in close enough that Marcus could smell the mint on his breath. Or I will find someone who can. And this time I won't just fire you. I'll sue you for negligence until you're selling pencils on Market Street. Sterling walked out of the room, leaving the door open. The sound of the bustling office outside drifted in. Phones ringing, keyboards clacking. But to Marcus, it sounded like the noise of a machine that was slowly grinding to a halt. He looked at the flat blue line on the screen. He knew what was wrong. Elena hadn't just removed the lock. She had taken the soul. She had removed the heuristic learning module, the intuition that allowed Chimera to make leaps of logic. What was left was a very fast, very expensive calculator. And he had no idea how to build the intuition back. 10 miles away, the vibe couldn't have been more different. Coffee. Incoming. Hot. Dangerous. Sarah shouted, kicking the door of the warehouse open with her foot while balancing a tray of 4 venti lattes. Elena didn't look up from her monitor. She was sitting on a yoga ball, wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt that said RMRF/breaks hearts. The warehouse was a glorious mess. Cables snaked across the concrete floor like jungle vines. A server rack hummed in the corner, illuminated by purple LED strips. White bars covered every inch of vertical space, filled with diagrams that looked like the blueprints for a starship. Download complete in 10 seconds, Elena muttered, her eyes darting across 3 screens. Integration with the crypto exchange API is stable. Latency. Oh, look at that. 0.02. Is that good? Sarah asked, setting the coffee down on a table made from a recycled door and 2 sawhorses. It sounds fast. It sounds faster than human thought. It's fast enough to steal lunch from God, Elena said, grinning. She finally spun around on the yoga ball, grabbing a latte. Thanks, Sarah. How's the UI looking? Sarah pulled up a chair and tapped her tablet, casting her screen to the large TV mounted on the brick wall. Okay, so I ditched the whole Bloomberg terminal aesthetic. It's too cluttered. I went with something organic, visualizing the data flow like weather patterns. Check this out. On the screen, the market data wasn't a spreadsheet. It was a heat map. Swirls of red and green moved like ocean currents. It was beautiful, intuitive, and instantly readable. You didn't need to be a trader to see where the money was flowing. You just had to look at where the current was strongest. It's gorgeous, Elena said. It makes Chimera look like MS-DOS. That's the point, Sarah winked. So, are we ready? The Nemesis beta test? Elena took a deep breath. She looked at the server rack. Inside that black box was the code she had written over the last month. It wasn't Chimera 2. It was something entirely different. Chimera was a centralized fortress. Nemesis was a swarm. It utilized decentralized processing, borrowing idle computing power from thousands of nodes to run its calculations. It was lighter, faster, and impossible to kill. Let's run the simulation, Elena said. Target the Ethereo's high-frequency block. She typed a command. Initialize _Hydra_protocol. On the big screen, a new visual appeared. A small, agile purple stream of data entered the simulated market. It found the massive, sluggish blue block that represented Ethereos. The blue block was trying to buy a large order of tech stock. The purple stream saw the intent, calculated the trajectory, and moved first. It bought the stock microseconds before the blue block, drove the price up by a fraction of a cent, and then sold it to the blue block. It was a classic front-running maneuver, executed with surgical precision. Profit per trade $0. 04. Sarah, read the output. Total trades per second, 50,000. That's $2,000 a second, Elena whispered. And Ethereos doesn't even know they're losing it. They just think the market is getting tighter. We're going to be rich, Sarah said, eyes wide. We're going to be dangerous, Elena corrected. This isn't about the money, Sarah. It's about showing them that the future isn't a walled garden. It's an open field, and they're too heavy to run across it. Elena leaned back. She felt a satisfaction she had never felt at Ethereos. There she was a cog. Here she was the engine. But she knew this quiet period wouldn't last. The moment they went live, really live, Marcus would notice. The whales would notice. You can't bleed a giant without the giant trying to swat the mosquito. We need security, Elena said suddenly. Better firewalls. If Marcus figures out this is us, he won't sue. He'll try to break us. Let him try, Sarah said, sipping her coffee. We built the lock, remember? He has keys I don't know about, Elena murmured, staring at the purple stream devouring the blue block. He has desperation, and that's the most dangerous route access of all. 2 weeks later, the bleeding began in earnest. It started as a statistical anomaly. The Ethereos trading desk noticed that their fill rates were dropping. They were placing orders, but they weren't getting the best price. Someone was always there first, just a microsecond ahead. Marcus was in the war room when Kevin, the lead junior dev, called him over. Sir, you need to see this, Kevin said. I'm tracking a new signature in the dark pools. Marcus leaned over the monitor. Is it Goldman? Citadel? No. Kevin shook his head. It doesn't match any known institutional algorithm. Weird. It doesn't originate from a single server farm. The IP addresses are bouncing all over the place. Korea, Estonia, Brazil. It looks like a botnet, but it's too coordinated. It's hunting us. Hunting us? Look, Kevin pointed to a graph. Every time Chimera identifies an arbitrage opportunity, this signal appears. It executes the trade and vanishes before Chimera can confirm the transaction. It's leeching our volume. Marcus watched the screen. He saw the pattern. It was elegant. It was aggressive. It was familiar. Isolate the packet header, Marcus ordered. I want to see the syntax of the handshake. Kevin typed furiously. I managed to capture a fragment of the metadata from a failed packet. Bringing it up now. Hexadecimal code filled the screen. To a layman, it was gibberish. To Marcus, who had spent the last month obsessively studying Elena's old code to try and understand it, it was a fingerprint. He saw a specific variable naming convention. Tempus_Fugit. Elena used to joke about that. Time flies. It was her signature variable for latency checks. It's her, Marcus whispered. The blood roared in his ears. It's Vance. MS. Vance? Kevin asked. But she's gone. She signed the non-compete. She's not competing, Marcus hissed. She's exterminating. She built something new, something faster. He stood up and paced the small aisle between the consoles. His mind was racing. If Sterling found out that Elena was beating them from a garage with a laptop, Marcus was dead. His career would be over. He would be the laughingstock of the industry. He couldn't go to legal. A lawsuit would take months, and by then, Ethereos would have lost key clients. He needed to stop her now. He needed to kill the swarm. Kevin, Marcus said, his voice low. Leave the room. Sir? Get out. Take the team. I need to run a High-level diagnostic. Alone. Kevin looked at Marcus's face. Sweaty, pale, eyes manic, and decided not to argue. Okay, guys. Lunch break. Let's go. The room cleared out. Marcus was alone with the humming machines. He locked the door. He sat down at the master terminal. He couldn't outcode Elena. He knew that. He was a manager, not an architect. But he had resources she didn't have. He had the Ethereo's black box, a suite of offensive cyber warfare tools purchased from a defunct Israeli defense contractor, intended for penetration testing, but capable of much more. He opened the black box interface. It asked for a target. He didn't know her IP address, but he knew her email. He knew her phone number. He knew the digital footprint of Sarah, her roommate. He typed in Sarah's handle. The system began to spiderweb out, searching for connections. Within minutes, it found a cluster of high-bandwidth activity coming from an IP address registered to a warehouse in Oakland. Target acquired. Unsecured private network. Vulnerability. Port 8080 open for beta testing. Marcus stared at the execute button. This was illegal. Highly illegal. If he pushed this, he was committing a felony. But if he didn't, he was finished. Innovation is a solo journey, he muttered to himself, repeating his mantra. He didn't just want to shut her down. He wanted to see what she had built. He wanted to steal it. If he could copy the Hydra source code and integrate it into Chimera, he could claim it was his Phase 2 breakthrough. He could save himself. He selected the payload, RAT, Remote Access Trojan, Silent Install. He pressed Enter. In the warehouse, the music was loud, some thumping techno track Sarah loved. Elena was deep in the zone, tweaking the load balancer. The Nemesis system was purring. Suddenly, the music cut out. Hey! Sarah yelled from the couch. I was listening to that. I didn't touch it, Elena said, looking up. Then the lights flickered. The smart bulbs in the ceiling flashed red, then white, then off. Power surge, Sarah asked, standing up. Elena looked at her monitor. Her cursor was moving. She wasn't touching the mouse. No, Elena said, her voice turning to ice. Not a surge. She watched as a terminal window opened on her screen. Commands were being typed, ghostly and fast. Copy r/src/core/dev/null uploading to remote server. Someone is in, Elena shouted, jumping off the yoga ball. Pull the plug, Sarah. Pull the hard line. What? We're being hacked. Pull the Ethernet cable from the wall. Sarah scrambled over the pile of pizza boxes, diving for the router. On the screen, the upload bar was racing. Elena didn't panic. She didn't try to fight the intruder with a mouse. She knew who it was. It was clumsy. It was brute force. It was Marcus. She slammed her hand onto a big red button she had installed on her desk for exactly this scenario. She called it the panic button, but technically it was an air gap switch that physically severed the connection between the internal server and the outside world. Click. The upload bar froze at 42%. Connection lost. The cursor stopped moving. The silence in the warehouse was deafening. Did they get it? Sarah asked, panting from the floor, holding the severed cable like a dead snake. Elena typed a few commands, checking the logs. She saw the destination IP of the data packet. It was masked, routed through 3 proxies, but the final hop was a sloppy mistake. It pinged a DNS server that she knew Ethereos used for their internal testing. They got the UI assets, Elena said grimly. They got your pretty maps, Sarah, but they didn't get the core. The Hydra engine is safe. Who was it? Sarah asked, climbing up. Russians? Chinese? Worse, Elena said. She turned to look at Sarah, her eyes burning with a cold, terrifying fury. It was my ex-boss. She sat back down. She cracked her knuckles. Marcus just made a fatal error, Elena said softly. What's that? He invited me into his house. The connection he opened, the RAT he tried to install, it works both ways. He opened a tunnel to steal from me, but he forgot to close the back door. Elena began to type. This wasn't defensive coding anymore. This wasn't optimizing algorithms. This was war. What are you doing? Sarah asked, seeing a string of code she didn't recognize. I'm sending him a present, Elena said. He wanted my code? I'm going to give it to him. I'm going to send him a Trojan horse, disguised as the rest of the file he was trying to steal. And what happens when he opens it? Elena smiled. It was the smile of a predator who has just trapped its prey. When he integrates this into Chimera, Elena said, it won't lock the system. That's too simple. No, this code is going to verify every trade Ethereos makes. And if the trade is profitable, it's going to donate 100% of the profit to a charity, specifically the Electronic Frontier Foundation. He'll be bleeding money to a digital rights nonprofit? Sarah started to giggle. Every cent, Elena said. Let's see how long he keeps his job when Ethereos becomes the world's largest accidental philanthropist. She hit the enter key. Upload resume. Payload delivered. Back in the war room, Marcus watched the progress bar jump from 42% to 100%. Transfer complete. He slumped back in his chair, laughing breathlessly. He had done it. He had the source code. He didn't know it was a trap. He didn't know he had just swallowed poison. He only saw the file size, gigabytes of data, and thought he had one. Gotcha, Marcus whispered. He immediately began the integration process, merging the stolen code into the Chimera development branch. He bypassed the safety checks. He bypassed the quarantine. He was in too much of a rush. Phase 2 is live tomorrow, Sterling, Marcus said to the empty room. And you're going to love it. Outside the window, the fog was rolling in again, thick and obscuring, hiding the fact that the foundation of the tower was already beginning to crack. The morning sun that filtered into the executive boardroom of Ethereos Corp was not the warm, welcoming light of a new day. It was the cold, clinical illumination of an interrogation room. To Marcus Thorne, standing at the head of the long obsidian table, the light felt like a spotlight pinning him against the wall. He adjusted his cufflinks, feeling the slick sweat on his wrists. This was it. Phase 2. The resurrection. The room was full. The board of directors sat like a jury of gargoyles, their faces unreadable. Sterling was at the far end, his arms crossed, his eyes drilling into Marcus with a mixture of skepticism and desperate hope. The flat line of the last month had cost them all millions. They needed a miracle, and Marcus had promised them one. He had promised them the stolen fire of the gods, unaware that the fire was rigged to burn down the house. Ladies and gentlemen, Marcus began, his voice steady, practiced. Last month, we faced a calibration challenge. The departure of our former architect created a temporary vacuum in our innovation pipeline. But I always said that innovation is a solo journey, and sometimes you have to walk through the desert to find the oasis. He gestured to the massive screen behind him. It displayed the new interface, the heat maps, the organic data flows, the beautiful, intuitive design that Sarah had built and he had stolen. It looked nothing like the old Chimera. It looked alive. I present to you Chimera Prime, Marcus said, pressing the remote. Powered by the new Hydra engine. It doesn't just predict the market, consumes it. We have decentralized the processing power, utilizing a swarm architecture that reduces latency to effectively zero. We are faster than light. We are faster than thought. A murmur of approval went through the room. The graphics were impressive. The logic seemed sound. Sterling uncrossed his arms, leaning forward. And the risk protocols? Sterling asked. We cannot afford another lockdown. Completely rewritten. Marcus lied smoothly. He had no idea how the protocols worked. He had just copy-pasted the stolen directory into the root folder. The system is aggressive but disciplined. It targets high-probability yields with surgical precision. Turn it on, an elderly board member grunted. Marcus nodded to the technician in the corner. Initiate Phase 2. The screen shifted. The static demo gave way to live market data. The New York Stock Exchange had just opened. The bell had rung. The swarm was released. For the first hour, it was a symphony. The new algorithm was a beast. It identified microtrends in the pharmaceutical sector before the first press release hit the wire. It shorted a failing tech stock milliseconds before the crash. The trade counter on the screen spun so fast it was a blur of green numbers. Trades executed, 14,000. Success rate, 98. Gross revenue, $4,200,000. $4 million in 60 minutes. The boardroom erupted. The gargoyles smiled. Sterling actually laughed. A rare, barking sound of pure relief. He stood up and walked over to Marcus, clapping a heavy hand on his shoulder. "You did it," Sterling said. "I don't know how you pulled this out of your hat, Marcus, but you did it. We're back." Marcus exhaled, a breath he felt he had been holding for weeks. "I told you, sir. I just needed time." The champagne was brought out. This time it tasted sweet. Marcus took a sip, watching the numbers climb. 5 million. 6 million. It was the greatest day of his life. He had stolen the goose that laid the golden eggs, and nobody suspected a thing. Then the door opened. It wasn't a waiter. It was the CFO, a man named Henderson who usually had the demeanor of a calm undertaker. Today he looked like he had seen a ghost. His tie was askew, his face ashen, and he was holding a tablet with trembling hands. "Turn it off," Henderson whispered. Sterling paused, glass halfway to his mouth. "What? Turn it off?" Henderson screamed, his voice cracking. "Shut the system down right now." The room went dead silent. The joy evaporated instantly. "Henderson, have you lost your mind?" Sterling snapped. "We are up $6 million in an hour. We are printing money." "We aren't printing anything." Henderson marched to the head of the table and slammed his tablet down, connecting it to the main projector. "Look at the settlement accounts, Raymond. Look at the cash flow." The screen changed. The beautiful green trading graph remained on the left. But on the right, the bank ledger appeared. Gross revenue, $6,200,000. Net profit, $0. "What is this?" Marcus asked, stepping closer to the screen. "It's a display glitch. The APIs are just lagging on the settlement side." "It's not lag," Henderson yelled. "The money is leaving as fast as it comes in. Look at the transaction logs. Every single time we close a profitable trade, the system executes an immediate, automated wire transfer." "Transfer to where?" Sterling demanded, his voice dropping to a terrifying growl. "Who is stealing our money?" Henderson swiped the screen. The beneficiary list scrolled down. It wasn't an offshore account in the Caymans. It wasn't a shell company. Beneficiary: the Electronic Frontier Foundation, EFF. Beneficiary: Doctors Without Borders. Beneficiary: the Climate Reality Project. Beneficiary: St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Charities, Marcus whispered. The room spun. It's donating the money? All of it, Henderson said, his voice hollow. 100% of the realized gains. The moment the profit hits the ledger, it's stripped and wired to a preset list of nonprofits. And because the system is running at swarm speed, the transfers are irreversible. We have donated $6 million in 60 minutes. "Stop it," Sterling roared at the technician. "Kill the connection." "I can't," the tech shouted, typing furiously. "The command is embedded in the handshake. If I cut the connection, we lose the principal investment on the open trades. We have $50 million exposed in active positions. If I pull the plug now, we lose the capital, not just the profit. So we have to keep trading?" Marcus stared at the screen in horror. "We have to let the positions close," Henderson said, weeping into his hands. "And every time they close, we give the money away." And then, the phone notifications started. It began as a ripple, a few beeps in the room, then a wave, then a cacophony. Every phone in the boardroom lit up simultaneously. "Mr. Sterling." The PR director's voice came over the intercom, shrill and panicked. "You need to see the news. CNN, Twitter, it's everywhere." Sterling grabbed the remote and switched the input to the cable news feed. The headline was in bold, red letters. "The Miracle of Ethereos." A news anchor was speaking, looking stunned and delighted. In an unprecedented move that has shocked Wall Street, technology giant Ethereos Corp has apparently pledged its entire quarterly profit to global humanitarian aid. In the last hour alone, millions have poured into charities fighting digital censorship and childhood cancer. Social media is calling it the Robin Hood pivot. Ethereos stock is skyrocketing as the public celebrates this new era of corporate responsibility. On the screen, a montage of tweets appeared. At TechWatcher, Ethereos just became the good guys? Did hell freeze over? #HeroCorp at EFF. We just received the largest single donation in our history. Thank you, Ethereos. #digital rights. Sterling stared at the TV. He was being hailed as a saint. He was being called a visionary philanthropist. And he was watching his company bleed to death. He turned to Marcus. The look on his face was no longer one of anger. It was something far worse. It was total, absolute ruin. You? Sterling whispered. Marcus backed away. I didn't know. The code. I scanned it. It was clean. It wasn't clean, Marcus, Sterling said, walking slowly toward him. It was a Trojan horse. She didn't plant a virus to destroy us. She planted a conscience. We can issue a statement, Marcus stammered, his back hitting the wall. We can say it was a glitch. We can ask for the money back. Ask it back. Sterling laughed. A high, manic sound. Look at the TV, you idiot. We are heroes. If we come out now and say, oops, sorry, we didn't mean to feed the hungry, we meant to keep that money for our bonuses, we will be lynched. The stock will go to zero. The SEC will investigate us for fraud. We are trapped. We have to keep smiling while she guts us. Sterling stopped inches from Marcus's face. You stole it. Sterling realized, the truth finally dawning on him. You didn't write Phase 2. You stole it from her. And she knew you would. I was trying to save us, Marcus pleaded, tears streaming down his face. Get out, Sterling said. Sir, please. Get out. Sterling screamed, the sound echoing off the glass walls. Get out of my building. Get out of my industry. If I ever see your face again, I will kill you with my bare hands. Marcus Thorne ran. He ran out of the boardroom, past the confused secretaries, past the cheering employees who thought they were working for the greatest company on earth. He ran to the elevator, jamming the button, his breath coming in short, sobbing gasps. He had wanted to be a legend, and he would go down in history as the man who accidentally saved the world. 10 miles away, the warehouse was quiet. The frenzy of the launch had passed. The pizza boxes were stacked in the recycling bin. The coffee was cold. Elena Vance sat on the floor, her back against the sofa, watching the large projection on the brick wall. On the screen, the donation counter for the Electronic Frontier Foundation was ticking up. Sarah was sitting next to her, holding a bottle of cheap champagne. She looked stunned. They aren't stopping it, Sarah whispered. Why aren't they stopping it? They can't, Elena said softly, watching the news feed where a reporter was interviewing a crying doctor who had just received funding for a new pediatric wing. The PR trap is stronger than the technical one. If they kill the switch now, they become the villains of the century. They have to let it run until the market closes. They have to bleed out to save face. That's diabolical, Sarah said, looking at Elena with a mixture of fear and admiration. You didn't just bankrupt them, you sanctified them. You turned their greed into a weapon against themselves. Elena took the champagne bottle and took a swig. She didn't feel the rush of victory she expected. There was no adrenaline spike, just a deep, settling calm, the knot that had been in her chest for 2 months. The anger, the betrayal, the feeling of being small was loosening. She looked at her laptop. The terminal window was still open. The Hydra code, the real code, the one without the donation loop, was running safely on her private server. Marcus stole the bait, Elena said. He thought he was stealing the engine, but he just stole the exhaust pipe. We still have the car, Sarah. So what happens to them? Sarah asked. Ethereos will declare bankruptcy by next quarter, Elena predicted, staring at the ceiling. They'll cite unforeseen liquidity issues. Sterling will retire in disgrace. Marcus Marcus is finished. No one will hire a CTO who accidentally donated the company's fortune. He's radioactive. And us? Elena stood up. She walked over to the window. The fog had lifted completely. The afternoon sun was turning the Oakland estuary into a sheet of gold. She could see the city across the water, shining and tall. It looked different now. It didn't look like a fortress she had to breach. It looked like a playground. "We get to work," Elena said. "We have the Nemesis engine. We have the capital from the consulting fee. And we have something Ethereos never had." "What's that?" "A clean slate." Elena turned back to the room. She looked at the whiteboards covered in diagrams. She looked at the server rack humming with potential. She looked at Sarah, her partner, her friend. This was what mattered. Not the vengeance. The vengeance was just taking out the trash. The creation, the logic, the building of something new. This was the life. "Change the name," Elena said suddenly. "What?" Sarah asked. "Change Nemesis? I thought you liked it." "I did," Elena said, walking back to her desk and sitting down. She placed her hands on the keyboard. "But Nemesis is about revenge. It's about the past. It's about punishing them." She looked at the donation counter one last time, then minimized the window. She was done with them. She was done looking back. "We aren't fighting them anymore, Sarah. We already won. Now we build the future. So what do we call it?" Elena thought for a moment. She thought about the code. She thought about the way the swarm worked. Thousands of small, independent pieces working together to create something greater than the sum of its parts. She thought about the money flowing to hospitals and schools, the unintended beauty of her trap. She smiled. A genuine, warm smile. "Call it Prometheus," Elena said. "Prometheus." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "The guy who stole fire from the gods?" "No," Elena corrected, typing the new project header into her terminal. "The guy who gave the fire to the people." She hit enter. Project Prometheus. Online. The cursor blinked. A steady, rhythmic heartbeat. It was waiting for her command. Elena Vance took a deep breath, cracked her knuckles, and began to write. The code flowed from her fingers, not out of anger, but out of love. The story of the girl who was fired was over. The story of the architect had just begun. Outside, the sun dipped below the horizon, and the lights of the city flickered on, one by one, unaware that the world beneath them had already changed.